Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and salutations. It's me, Salty. Welcome back to 2 Cents Toys. And tonight we're planning on doing a Way I Played episode, but unfortunately, I know everyone's excited to be here. I got Happy Accident, Keith Knight, Bjorn Norgensen, Ted Milich, Epic Badgers in the house, a whole bunch of people. And I don't know if Bobby's going to be able to make it tonight or not. He wasn't very easy to get a hold of today. He's been very busy, but he said he's going to try and make it if he can. So if not, it's just going to be what? Oh my God! It's Bobby Vala. How you doing tonight, sir?
Oh hell yeah! That was awesome.
Hell yeah! So I am joined tonight by Bobby Vala, the head honcho of the Valaverse Action Force, handsomest man in the toy industry at this time.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah. So he's very graciously agreed to come on and do an episode of The Way I Played, and it's a super fun live stream. I love doing this. It's one of my favorite things to do on the channel. How you doing tonight, Bobby?
I'm great, man. Kids were or my daughter was up all at last night, and then my son was a maniac today. So it's like, I'm a little not sleep deprived, but when you're constantly woken up out of a sleep, you're kind of like a little draggy. But now that I'm here, I'm like, let's go, baby. I was dragging ass all day, but I couldn't wait. Couldn't wait till 8 o'clock. I was looking forward to coming on this podcast for so long.
Hell yeah. I've been looking forward to it too. I was trying to make this like a every other week type of deal, but people get busy. Iconicon was a big thing that happened.
Yeah.
People may have heard of it, but so we're trying to get back into the swing of things. And already out of the gate, we got a super chat from someone by the name of Laser Pants.
Damn.
He says, for the best intro ever. Thanks, Ryan.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah. What? All right.
What?
Oh, Stone Cold. But for those that are new to this format or this channel, there is some swearing involved, which is normal for my channel. I know a lot of people in our community tend to be about a PG-13. Here, after like the first 30 seconds or something, it flirts with R. So if you are young and watching it, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Analog Toys already says, he says, at work, so he can't hang by showing my love for you. Thank you, Tony. Another
Thanks, Tony.
Handsome man.
Yeah, listen, Tony is way more handsome than I am. Way more. I'm going to bring Tony to the movie premiere, and he's going to come on the red carpet, and they're going to be like, ooh, look at this guy. Then they're going to see me and be like, who invited this guy?
Now, the question is, for the red carpet, is it going to be suit and tie, like a black suit affair, or is Tony going to show up in his kit?
So I'm going to go kitted out, but I'm going to go kitted out over a suit.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm going to get real crazy with it.
Hell yeah. That's what we call class. Maybe you've heard of it. All right. So real quick, before we jump into everything else, for people who may not have heard of the Bobby Vala, let them know where you're from, what you do, where they can find you and all that, which, spoiler alert, the links are already in the description, but that's neither here nor there.
Let's see. I am Bobby Vala. I am 39 years old. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I now live in the shithole of Rhode Island.
Same.
I've been a collector and player of toys forever. I own a toy company, so it's only fitting. Those of you who don't know, I have a toy company called Valaverse. Do a line of 6-inch military themed figures called Action Force. Go check them out. Shipping soon. And yeah, it's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Yes, sir. So for those that are curious, the Valaverse website is in the description below, where you can purchase yourself some gear, some pins, some stickers if you want, some comic books if you're into the literacy type of things. And also, you didn't quite miss the boat. There's still time to pre-order some Valaverse action figures. The link to the Big Bad Toy Store is in the description. So there are things to pick from. Lord knows I've done it because I've been like, okay, I've got enough, and then I'll be like, but another weapons pack is only $12, so let me get another one. So
yeah, they Big Bad still has stock. I think Dorkside still has some stock too. So get purchase from them. They're great partners. Also, after everything ships and is fulfilled on the pre-orders, I'll have all of the items in stock on Valaverse.com. So that'll be your one-stop shop to go to get all your extra product, or if you missed out, you can get the product there.
Exactly. Plus, in addition to and also, that is the place to pre-order your very own Desert Rat action figure when that goes live from our very own Tony Roberts, who actually says, I love it when Bobby flirts with me. And follows it up with some kisses. So
sure you do.
Yes.
He always sends me, when he's at work, he's always bored. He always sends me nudes. And I'm just like, dude, come on, man. I'm trying to work here.
See, I mean, you're hashtag blessed, my friend. I have to pay for those.
Oh, you have the OnlyFans,
Well, we call it Only Rats.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yep. So, also, just to kind of throw in a little plug, because I would be bereft of my duties if I didn't. You can also catch Bobby Vala on Fridays at the Infinity Equation with Ryan, who's in the chat, and you can also find Dante and Alex there as well.
That's right.
It's a great group of guys. So they do a fantastic show. The chemistry is always on point. So
great show. We have a lot of fun, man. Just listen. If you tune into that show and you don't laugh, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a real entertaining bunch of misfits.
That's right. So let's see. We've already we skipped past that. Sweet. So let's start with our questions here. So this is technically the second question because we already kind of slid on through the first one there. It says kind of an overview of what's held your interest over the years. Like what was it that you collected as a child that you've continued to collect as an adult?
The G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe is by far the one thing that was one of the first toys I had and is my favorite toy line to this day still. So my room at my house, which you guys have seen on podcasts, is my Joe room. I have, just about every figure except for the era that I don't, believe exists. But I have everything from Real American Hero, all the modern stuff, a lot of prototypes, unreleased stuff, vehicles, flags, terror drones, pretty much everything. I love G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe was everything I needed as a kid. G.I. Joe took a back seat in the 90s, when some other lines that I'll get into kind of came out. But G.I. Joe has been it. G.I. Joe was the thing that when I got out of toys for a short time, when I got back in, it was like, I want my Joe collection back. And, G.I. Joe has been something that I've had the most fun collecting. I think, my line is very, influenced by G.I. Joe. So, I got to work on some G.I. Joe when I was at Hasbro. G.I. Joe is it for me, man. If like I had to give up every toy line and just have one, it would just, it'd be an easy answer because G.I. Joe would be it.
Hell yeah. And I agree with that 100% because I'm very much the same way. Like I've still, in previous videos I've mentioned that G.I. Joe is like the one mainstay. Like I'd kind of ebb and flow out of other things, but G.I. Joe I always came back to. Also, he also owns probably about half of the produced Steel Brigade figures ever.
Yeah, I do. It's been confirmed, and I think it's by a lot. I have the largest Steel Brigade collection in the world. which is pretty awesome, especially now that I own the trademark for it and I got Steel Brigade and the Action Force line. But yeah, I've moved all my Steel Brigades from my Joe room at my house because it got too the collection got too big. So I was like, I have a huge wall over here in my office that is dedicated to just all Steel Brigade. So I'm going to put all shelves up, put my painting up from Doug Hart, and I'm going to have every single one of my Steel Brigade figures up there. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm pretty sure they're up to around 120 something, maybe 130 something. Yeah. I like to think that I'm, one of the premier Steel Brigade connoisseurs and people that know the history of it. I know there's a lot of guys out there that know a lot about Steel Brigade, but I've kind of, I have enough to the point where I've been able to study them and know all everything that other people, didn't know, and brought a lot of information to the forefront. I have a website, steelbrigadetracker.com, which I've neglected, but I am going to get back to it and update it and make it more user friendly. And, cause it was great for people to kind of come together and log their Steel Brigades and have it all kind of as one central focused, site for Steel Brigade. But yeah, that's my Steel Brigade, spiel.
Hell yeah. He is the librarian of sorts when it comes to the Steel Brigade. Very quickly though, I got to acknowledge this man. He's one of the few people that knows me IRL, and I used to work for him, and he's one of the best men I have ever served with, and I would follow him anywhere. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Zach.
So Timothy Ward has a question already.
Shoot.
He says, "But Bobby, if Hasbro had given you carte blanche to revamp one of their existing licenses, which would you have chosen and what would you have done?" I'm assuming he means other than G.I. Joe.
Oh, other than G.I. Joe. Let's see. Well, there's a gray area with Cops and Crooks because Hasbro did the line, but I don't think they own the IP.
Mm-hmm.
So if it would have to be one of their own IPs, did they? Oh wait, they did Visionaries, not Supernaturals, and I wasn't a Visionaries fan. Probably Mask. I'm trying to think of the Kenner lines that
Hasbro owns by default now.
They gobbled up. Because there were a lot of licenses Kenner had but didn't own, but I think Mask was their own. Probably Mask. I wasn't a huge Mask fan, but as far as what Hasbro has, I'm sure there's something that's escaping me that I'm like, oh, I would definitely pick that one. But yeah, probably Mask.
Hell yeah. Now, if you were to just kind of springboard off that, if you were going to revamp one of it, would you keep them in that kind of 2.5-inch scale, or do you think you'd go smaller with Mega Constructs or bigger?
I would want to go bigger just because I feel like that scale, there's really nothing else to it. And I know that, on the Marvel team, we tried doing the small 2.5-inch scaled figures with Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers 2. And we tried to kind of make that smaller scale with vehicles and play sets, and it just didn't catch on. I also don't think they had the quality of what Mask had at the time. So, if I had to for cost reasons, I'd probably stick to the same scale, but I'd want to go bigger, although going bigger would make them way more expensive. So it'd be definitely a double-edged sword. I think that's why you haven't seen Hasbro really do anything with Mask, because I think it's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you got to work within that gray area, because Mask is, from my understanding, as someone who never owned or really doesn't, the only things I know about Mask I've learned from Tony and Michael. It seems like the whole line is built around the vehicles themselves.
Yes.
The figures are an afterthought. So It's kind of if you go to that 6-inch scale, for example, that's a very short-lived line.
Yeah. So. The interesting thing about Mask versus G.I. Joe, it's people consider G.I. Joe a vehicle line, and then that had figures to compensate. Mm-hmm. To me, it was always a figure line. I think the figures were much stronger than the vehicles. Mm-hmm. And the figures went much deeper than the vehicles. And that's a testament to it because there's a crap ton of vehicles. Whereas Mask, the vehicles were primary and the figures were secondary. So it was interesting how there was a switch there.
Yeah, that's gosh, I think it was the episode with Scuba Pete. We were talking about Mask and all that, and Dino Riders came up, and I'm like, those are the same scale.
Yep.
So for people that want to kind of populate their Mask vehicles or have variety, Dino Riders is right there.
It's too bad Starcom was a little smaller. Starcom would have been great at the Mask scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got people saying Happy Accident says Air Raiders. Ted Millich says Sky Commanders. We got all sorts of stuff. The Epic Badger wants to know who owns Centurions, because he'd go crazy if they were sold modern, which Bjorn actually brings up, and I'm pretty sure he's right. There's a third party who's like rebooting them or something.
Yeah, I thought Hasbro owned Centurions, but I could be wrong. I could have sworn that they did, though, so I'm not sure. Also, like Hasbro's bookkeeping, they've laid off pretty much everyone who knew anything about the licenses they still own. So I think now, since there's all these new people there, they don't know the true history of what Hasbro actually has and doesn't have. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's like, for instance, if Daryl DePriest was still there and I was trying to get Steel Brigade, he would have never let that happen. So, you know, the fact that like it went and Hasbro knew what I was doing and didn't stop it. Not that they could have, because they haven't used the trademark, but, you know, they could have, you know, made a stink about it, made the process a little slower, but they didn't, just because there's people that they don't know what they have. Right. So I think, you know, if someone's doing Centurions, which I've seen, and Hasbro owns it, Hasbro probably has no idea.
It's one of those where they're kind of like a Smaug of sorts. They just have this horde of stuff, but they don't have like an inventory of what's there.
Exactly.
So kind of circling back to the question 2 is a two-parter. So we talked about toy lines you've collected as a kid up through adulthood. Was there anything as a kid that you didn't like? Like you're like, oh, that's dumb. But now as an adult, you look back, you're like, yeah, that's actually kind of cool. I like that.
I wasn't like, when I think back to like what I wasn't a fan of as a kid, Transformers is probably the number one thing that I wasn't a fan of as a kid. I didn't watch the cartoon. I didn't like, you know, the toy line. And I think, I don't know, maybe like I had a very in-depth imagination, but to me, they were too hard to do without instructions, and I didn't have any that had instructions. So to me, it was a frustrating toy line. It was kind of like I had a couple Robotech vehicles, and I remember like not being able to like figure out how to work them, and I just played with the figures. I had my G.I. Joe world, but you know, Transformers is kind of the number one thing that I wasn't into as a kid. I definitely appreciate it way more now. You know, it's like I have like my cases back here that Sal saw the other day. It's like a time capsule. It's everything that I, you know, mostly stuff I played with as a kid. There's a few things I didn't have as a kid that's in there. But I would like to add, you know, like an original Megatron, but also like the prices of stuff is crazy. The other Transformer I had as a kid, I had 2 Transformers as a kid. I had Six Shot, who stayed in like gun mode because I couldn't figure out how he worked. And then I had Skullgrin, the Pretender, which I liked because I then painted him green and turned him into Doomsday so he could fight Superman. But nowadays, like looking back, it's like I can appreciate, you know, the Transformers line. I think it's still not something that I love. I mean, I grew to love Transformers a little more when I started working at Hasbro. I was on the exclusives team, and I got to work on a bunch of masterpieces. And like my name is on the cockpit of Acid Storm, and you know I got to work on Soundwave and the Sunfire or Sunfire. You know, and I got to do some other like Transformers. There was like a Dragon program, like an exclusive program for either Walmart or Target, and it was like this Dragon-esque Transformers line, which I really liked working on. I can't remember because it was so long ago, but you know, getting to work on Transformers that early on when I got to Hasbro, I didn't think that would ever happen. So it was very cool to work on Transformers and see how it was to like work with Takara, you know, being at Hasbro, and then they have kind of that other partnership was really interesting as well.
So to kind of even springboard off of all that, so So you've grown to appreciate Transformers, GI Joe. I think I pretty well know the answer to this question, but gotta ask anyway. Is there anything in your collection that's still left over from childhood?
So I hate to say it because I'm so envious of Michael because he has like everything from his childhood. The only thing I could say that I still have is I have an Ertl 89 Batmobile.
Mm-hmm.
I have one Exo Squad figure, and I have my original Steel Brigade patch. Other than that, like I was kind of, because I wasn't a collector because I was so much younger. I was younger in the late 80s and early 90s when like the prime of toys for me. But then I would say like when I got to like middle school is when I started playing hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it was like hockey was everything. Hockey and comic books, because my dad had got me into comic books right before like the death of Superman. So you're talking like 93, 94, and toys kind of took a back seat. Just also like I was very impressionable as like a kid, so it's like I wanted to be with the cool kids, and if my friends weren't playing with toys anymore, I wasn't really playing with toys anymore. The only thing that I think me and my friends are still kind of collecting were vintage Star Wars figures, because back then it's like you can go and find them at flea markets and garage sales and things like that still, and they were really cheap. So, Star Wars a little bit, but I got out of it in middle school, and then high school was still big comics, big hockey, and then I didn't get back into toys until after high school, and then I started going to comic book illustration school. And then that's like, you had like McFarlane stuff coming out. You had the first Legends figures coming out, that the Spider-Man wave. And that's when I got very heavy into collecting again. And but also slightly before that was Power of the Force. What was that, 95? Power of the Force 2 came out. So Power of the Force 2 got me back into toys. So it was Star Wars, and then right after high school, it was kind of like that whole comic book figure scene. And, stuff was great in the early 2000s there. And then, I think along the way, like, I think my parents, got rid of my stuff, or I told them they can get rid of stuff, or I do know that, I had some stuff left over, and I just told my dad to just give it to my younger brother, or, sell at garage sale. So it's like, I kind of wish going back, like in my 20s, I was stupid. Like I was young and stupid. And I thought like, getting drunk and high and hanging out with my friends, I thought like that was cool and toys weren't important. But I kind of wish that I'd always thought that way, knowing that I would, go into the toy industry. So, long-winded answer, but not much left from my childhood. But the fact that I do still have my Steel Brigade patch means a lot to me.
Right. Yeah, I find because I very similarly had a lot of toys, and they went the way of the dodo. Around 2000, I've told the story a few times. This 2007, 2008, somewhere in there. I'm sure you've seen Toy Story 2, and it was like just the same fucking thing happened. I was getting ready to go to work. My parents were having a yard sale, and I was like, boxing stuff up. My stuff was supposed to go up into the attic. These boxes were supposed to go to the yard sale. I went to work. Dad came up, grabbed the wrong boxes, put them in the yard sale, and when I came home, like all my toys were gone. Oh. Now, the asterisk to that is this past February, when I was on leave between duty stations, I went and visited my mom, and I was telling her about that story. Like, yeah, I still remember. I wish, kind of fawning over all the toys that were gone. And she's like, no, honey. She's like, we still have some of them. And she had like a couple boxes of my toys, which some of them are right here.
Awesome.
So not all of these, some of these like came from Matt Swafford, but Hydro Man is one of my absolute favorites. And that's my childhood one. And I specifically put him on the table because people may or may not know who collect Marvel Legends. Bobby is the designer behind the Hydro Man Marvel Legend. And it's one of my favorites. And if you don't like it, you can go suck a fuck. So
Dante wants bare arms. No need for bare arms on that figure.
Then he's just a street goon.
Then he's just a street dude.
So
The other thing that killed kind of toys were girls. When I was in my late teens, in high school, I remember in my bedroom, I had just shelves lining every wall that had every Power of the Fourth figure, and then even into episode 1, I had every figure. And I remember, like, I started kind of dating this super hot girl that way out of my league, and I'm like, holy crap! But then I was like, oh man, I can't bring her over to my house, and like, she's like, I want to come over, and she came over, and like, she came in my room, and that you saw that look on her face, like that, whoa. And I was like, oh yeah, this is my stuff. And she goes, wow, this is intense. When they say like intense, they mean like this is weird and stupid. So then like, we didn't go out anymore after that. And I was like, crap, man. So I was like, okay, well, I got to take down the toys if I want hot girlfriends. But then it's like, I just didn't care about that later. Like when I got in the toy industry, then it's like, even like when I met my wife, it was like when she came to my apartment, I had toys all over the place. It was understandable because it's like, well, that's your job,
Right. Yeah.
It was an excuse to like
toys everywhere. So what you're telling everyone is that you started to be a toy designer so you could justifiably collect toys. That's how it all started.
You got it.
Gotcha. So very quickly, I've had this up on the screen for a while. Gojatron asks if that was the Transformers Prime Beast Hunters was a Transforming Dragon
yes.
to work on.
Yeah,
He's a big fan, which
yep.
I won't say where, but he's not too far from us. So
oh, okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. I'm just gonna look it up real quick.
So I got a few things up here, things that are tied to Bobby somehow, or they're all vintage, but things from my collection, things that I know Bobby also collects or was into. Not to mention the Valaverse poker chip, which is what I call the Valaverse challenge coin. So, all right.
Yeah, challenge coin. I mean, I'm a poker player, so it'll always be a poker chip. But I am a big fan of challenge coins. Maybe one day I'll do a really cool metal challenge coin.
Just a big metal V or something. I have one challenge coin that's just in the shape of Iron Man, but so one of my favorite questions to ask. And because we've all been there, it's happened to all of us. Was there any toy that you got swept up by the merchandising, or you saw it on the shelf and that kid brain kicked in and imagination went wild? You got home, you ripped that sucker open, and this toy sucks. You ever experienced that?
Trying to think if that happened. I know I got Mutagen Man from the Vintage Turtles line, and I took him out of the package and his arm broke. So I remember like being like real bummed about that. My mom super glued it, but it wasn't the same because then he couldn't move.
Right.
But as far as like, let's see. Yeah, I can't recall being like to the point where I was like, oh, well, this sucks. Like that's, I don't know. To me, it was like toys were just exciting, man. Toys were exciting. At the time. I think I'm harder on toys now. Taking them out and being like, oh, this sucks. Yeah. But no, it didn't. The magic didn't get ruined for me. Because I like looked at it as like a toy, and like to me, it was like that experience was it. But I can't recall ever having a bad one like that.
Yeah, there were a couple that I experienced. One of them is within arm's reach. But this was the first time. So I used to just see things on the shelf and just grab them because like, oh, that's cool. Because it was like from a show I liked, or it was just like a cool samurai, for example, or something. And this was the toy. It came in a 2-pack. I no longer have Cyclops that came with him. But this was the 2-pack that made me start looking at figures like, what am I getting myself into? Because I saw this Apocalypse. I'm like, oh, cool. He has a gun that like he has little projectiles. You rotate it and it shoots. Cyclops was a 5 POA figure, and his arms go that far forward. So super effective mace. And you press the A and the arm pops off. So it was very wasn't the best of figures.
Huh.
But
I remember, speaking of X-Men, I remember there was a Toys R Us set of all the Toy Biz X-Men figures.
The Hall of Fame.
Yep. And they were glued to the base. Like I remember being like real bummed about that. Like, well, that's not cool.
Yep, I had that set. I got it for Christmas, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Because I always had like Executioner or Richter. I had like all these kind of extreme D-list characters, and I was just like, I mean, I had fun with them. I played with them. That's how I grew such a strong affinity for Cable.
Mhm.
But I never had like the main people, or if I did, I had like variations on a theme. Like it wasn't Magneto; it was some weird version of Magneto or something. So when I got that and I was ripped them out and I couldn't get them off the base, oh, I was devastated, devastated. So I think I ended up snapping ankles, getting them off of there or
Yeah.
something like that. So
Such a silly decision, man.
yeah, yeah, I'm not sure if I would approve that if I was the head idiot in charge, but that's all right. So we have Ted Millich really wants to know, Bobby, is Conan the Destroyer really better than Conan the Barbarian?
100%. It's not even a question. Like, not even a question. Maybe the story is a little better in Barbarian because it's like kind of like his origin story, and it sets it up. But as far as movie and cast and action and effects, Destroyer all the way, like all the way, all the way. The Mirror Demon guy is a little weak, but the score for Destroyer is so much better. Yeah, by far, Destroyer is way better.
Hell yeah. And now Happy Accident has a really interesting question. Um, he says, Bobby, if you could have hand attachments similar to how the bat functions, what hand attachments would you have? Yeah, that's kind of a out of the blue question, not something you really think about because you're like, I've never really thought
Yeah, I
about
mean,
missing an arm. So
yeah, right. Like, so I guess I would change the attachment so I could have my regular hand, but then I could take it off and put something else on.
mhm.
But I don't know if I would need to take the time. It's like I think of like, okay, well, I have my chainsaw, my weed whacker, my lawnmower. It's like I'm fine with all those. I mean, if I could like replace my left hand and just have my gun permanently attached this way, I won't have to carry my gun. Then I wouldn't really have to draw. I could just point it at you. But I don't know, man. I might not want an attachment. I think I'm good with my two hands here.
I think I'd have to go Dustin Hoffman Hook from the movie Hook. Just start like get like a toothbrush that screws into the end of it, just like weird stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if I could have like a cyborg hand instead that was like really strong, I would just bash motherfuckers with that hand.
Exactly. So let's see. There's some really good ones here. We have a super chat from Gojitron, which I'll get to in just a second. Bjorn wants to know, what's the hardest decision you've had to make concerning your collection?
Ooh, I know the answer to that one. That was it was 2001. So 2001. It was after episode 1 because I remember because I had like I said, I had all my Star Wars figures. I had every single figure from the time Power of the Force 2 came out. Like I'm talking every figure. I had the Wedge from the Millennium Falcon carry case. I had the wet-haired Luke and Vader from the game. The Chewie with the Chewie came with something where he was all shackled up in Jabba's palace. I had everything. Episode 1 came out. I was in line at midnight. I was there for 4 hours. My dad dropped me off, and I was the first person in line. And I remember I was the first person to get those episode 1 figures. And then the movie came out, and then I was like, well, that sucks for being a Star Wars fan. But I was also at comic book school, and I wanted to desperately get into the comic book business. And I wanted to go to San Diego Comic-Con. And I wanted to, go and show my portfolio. And I remember I sold my entire Star Wars figure collection. Now, this is like when eBay not first started, but I'm trying to like, what did eBay start in 99 or 2000? So it was like in the infancy days of eBay. And I remember selling like my entire collection. I think I only got like $900 or $1,000 for it, which I don't know if that was a good price for back then, but that money paid for my San Diego trip. It got me my flight, my hotel, and then spending money. And I'll never forget that trip. And it's like, no comic book work came out of it. And it's like, because I was still young and I was terrible then. But like, I have a Tim Sale Ra's al Ghul commission piece over my shoulder over here, and I got to meet Tim Sale. He's one of my favorite artists, and he had never drawn Ra's al Ghul before, and that is, to this day, he and I still talk about it. That is the only time he has ever drawn Ra's al Ghul, and he won't draw Ra's al Ghul ever. Like when he did that, he was like, I didn't want to give this to you. I was young, and he felt bad, but like I commissioned him, and he said that was one of his last like big commission pieces. He only does like small head sketches and stuff like that, but that's a full body ink wash Ra's al Ghul. It's one of my prized possessions. I got to meet Dan Jurgens, who's probably my all-time favorite comic creator. I got to meet him, and he and I had been emailing back and forth leading up to that trip. So we got to, hang out a bunch and talk, and he gave me, he looked over my work and gave me some tips and lessons, that sort of thing. Got to meet Michael Turner for the first time. So it was a great trip, and it was cool for me to like go out there on my own for the first time, like being so young and going out there on my own and, experiencing that. So it meant a lot to do that, but that was, I don't know if it was a hard decision, but it like, there were, as I was boxing that stuff up, I'm like, oh, am I going to want this back kind of thing? So, there's definitely, there was a little bit of seller's remorse, but, that's probably one of the hardest things, but it was for a good reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always the hard line that we walk between collecting too much and then having that conversation with yourself, like, I need to downsize. Like, this is out of hand. There's too much. There's no room to live where I'm living because I have so much stuff. So like I think it was Brad Pitt's character Tyler Durden in Fight Club says the stuff we own ends up owning us.
Exactly.
So Gojatron says, Bobby, were there any problems with toys you played with as a kid that you wanted to solve when you became a toy designer?
No, I mean, when I wanted to become a toy designer, it's like I didn't really know anything about the toy industry. I was a toy collector, so I knew action figures and toys, but I was an illustrator. But when I got to Hasbro, I became a sponge. I asked so many questions, and I wanted to just be the best designer and just know everything. So I wanted to know the history of stuff and why things were done a certain way. So to me, it was more of, I just wanted everything I worked on to be good. Like I wanted to be the best possible. Like there were some guys that are kind of just half-assed items. And I just remember, like, I think for many years in a row on the Marvel team, I worked on the most items of any other designer. And I just remember thinking, like, I put my heart and soul into every item. Like, granted, some items didn't come out great, but like I always wanted every item to be great because I didn't want anyone to have a bad experience with an item. And I remember, like, I did the Spider-Man playset that was dog shit. And to this day, I'm still bummed like that I was attached to that project because, it was awful. And, I was like, it was bad for a lot of reasons that I couldn't affect, but, just, it still sticks with me. But, when I think about it, like, the Dancing Groot won Toy of the Year. And that was like one of the first times Hasbro won Toy of the Year in the boys action brand for many years, 15, 20 years maybe. And then to have my Infinity Gauntlet be nominated the following year. So it was like, not many people get to do items that have the spotlight on them and are regarded like that. But to me, it was like, I got to do two of them. And it was such an honor to be part of a team that won Toy of the Year and then to be nominated for another item. But it's like, to me, it was like that, it's kind of rewarding, the hard work pays off and it just shows that like I put so much into the stuff that I worked on. So just going back to the question, there was nothing that I could think of that as a kid that I wanted to make better. Cause I didn't think like I would work in the toy industry. I thought I would draw comic books, but just, when I got there, I wanted to make sure that everything was great. And the same thing today with my line, it's like, if my name is attached to it, I'm the designer on it, I want it to be the best item possible.
Exactly. That's as a famous man once said by the name of Ron Swanson, "Never half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing." So always put everything into it, and I think it'll pay dividends in the end. Which
It's even like today, like it bums me out when I see a poor design on something. You know, like I talked about on the Infinity Equation. I got the Revelations Moss Man, and the big vine hand makes his wrist kind of go like this because it can't hold the weight of it. And it's like that was such an easy fix, and like that's stuff that you can. That to me, it's like, how did someone not see that? And then it's like, I see the the Mattel WWE ring that they're crowdfunding, and I'm just like, man, like I'm not trying to sound cocky or like I'm better than anyone, but I see things and I'm just like, I would not have done that. And I feel like shoot, man, I wish like I could have worked on that to affect that. I want everything to be better. And I think of the things that could have made them better. Like you didn't need the wood under the mat because no one's going to show that. Maybe one guy is going to show the wood under the mat. It was unnecessary costing, and it's hurting the price on it and this and that. It's like I could have easily told you what that should be, what makes it compelling, that sort of thing. And even like the first Super 7 He-Man figures I ever got. I never had a Super 7 figure before. I picked up last year or the year before the movie He-Man and Skeletor, and I was like, how did someone make these decisions? Like as a designer, I was almost like offended, like, come on, you could have caught this. Like there are several stages where you could catch this stuff and you can influence this and make this better. And when I see like that kind of stuff, I get like bummed out because I'm like, I wish like I could have worked on that and I could have affected that. Like when I was at Jazzwares, I saw things on the Fortnite line that I was like, guys, we can't do this way. This is not the right way to do things. And they were pushing on me forever. And I'm like, guys, this is not the way. This is not what your customers want. And then it's like, they fought me on it. I didn't win. I leave. Then I read in, message boards like, oh, people hate, this is an aspect of the line people hate, because of this. And I'm like, try to fix that, man. So it's like things like that. I get really bummed because I feel like, just putting the effort in will make items good. And some people just miss the boat.
Exactly. And James Salzberg says now, because you mentioned having the robotic arm, he says, I have to make a custom Fisto Vala now. Because I have the Ram Man Tim.
That would be awesome.
He says, or Clam Champ. I'll see what I can do. I don't think it'd be too difficult. So, and not for nothing, just speaking about things you've worked on, I am the proud owner of a Infinity Gauntlet, now autographed by one Bobby Vala. So it's okay to be jealous.
Yeah, it was the first one I ever signed. It's the only one I've ever signed. So I was excited.
Yep, and I got that giant toddler. So for those who like, it went under the radar for a lot of people. I understand the 12-inch Marvel Legends line. If you don't get anything else, that Hulk is mint.
It's a good one,
and it's like 10 pounds of plastic. The thing is huge, so it's perfect. So Timothy Ward has a question before we jump back into ours. He says, which action figure vehicle is the most anachronistic to its toy line or playset?
Which action figure vehicles? Help me with anachronistic. I'm trying to think if I want to make sure that I have this right in my head.
Anachronistic is like the best example I can come up with to give people. Did you ever see A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger?
Yeah.
And how all the music was contemporary music to that time, but it was set in a different time period. That's anachronism.
Got it.
Where it's like, oh, we went back in time to the 1800s and someone has a cell phone or something. It's a piece of technology that exists in a time before it was created. If I'm understanding that correctly.
That's a good question. I'm gonna put that one on the back burner. I'm gonna keep thinking about that. I want to have a good answer for that one.
Is that I immediately think of things like the Bug from G.I. Joe and things, but that it doesn't exist. It's just a piece of sci-fi tech. So. Yeah. I mean,
the thing about Joe is Joe had so many. Like they took, if you saw how the line evolved, it's like you had things like the APC and the MOBAT, but then you had things like the Rolling Thunder, whereas like Modern Military, you don't really have that. And then the Mobile Command Center. So. Joe was kind of, it's almost too easy to say Joe because there's so many examples. But like look at Desert Scorpion. Like his suit was meant. I think even in his file card talks about his suit helps him stay hydrated to make sure like it cools his body and things like that to make sure he could fight in desert warfare. It's like that's kind of stuff that they didn't have yet. And guys went to Desert Storm and they're fighting in gas masks and BDUs, sweating their ass off.
Yep.
So Cops and Crooks. Cops and Crooks was great. As far as like bulletproof, the fact that like he was kind of a modern day, RoboCop. I mean, you can even say RoboCop, like, but he said vehicle. So, right. I don't know, probably like the General, G.I. Joe General. It was basically just like based on wheels. That's a good one. But I mean, to your point, listen, the Bug. I'm with you. We're Bug lovers. You got to come by the house one day and see the model of that one.
Oh God, yeah. I saw it in that video, and I was just like, I want to touch it.
The Bug's a really, really great vehicle. So yeah. So
speaking of, just a quick segue, Ted Millich wants to know what your favorite G.I. Joe vehicle is.
The Whale.
That's a good one.
The Rolling Thunder is always going to be iconic to me just because, like, you always see people have, like, pictures from their childhood of, like, them with toys. I don't have that many pictures. I have a picture of me with, like, some LJN wrestling figures and playing with some He-Man figures, but there's a picture of me, I believe it's my 7th birthday, of me with the Rolling Thunder, and I'm like this little kid holding this big giant box. Yeah. And so I have that picture framed next to my Rolling Thunder. So that the Rolling Thunder means a lot to me. But as far as like now adult, like what is the like judging what the best vehicle was as far as play, detail, it's definitely the Whale. The Whale is an amazing vehicle.
I agree. That's in terms of G.I. Joe, like the team specifically, I think the Whale's my favorite of the vehicles. It's how did I described it as it's large enough to immerse yourself in imagination, but not so large that it becomes cumbersome and you can't break away from it.
Exactly.
So that was a problem I had with play sets. Was some play sets were great. You could play in the front and behind them, and you could just use the environment around you. But then there were some like the Toy Biz Daily Bugle Spider-Man play set from the 90s. It was pretty much only a backdrop, and you were limited to that because of so many different colors and everything else. If you moved outside of that, the immersion was broken. You were kind of confined to it. So, speaking of, back to our questions. So, excuse me.
Someone asked ribeye or T-bone.
Yes.
I'm a ribeye guy all the way.
Agreed. So, here we go. Ted Millich. I'm going to read it in the voice. Bobby, where's Vroom Vroom? He's just kidding.
I was waiting for someone to do it.
Yeah, there's always one. So, I want to talk about.
We should make that a shirt.
Bobby, I love Vroom Vroom.
Bobby, where's Vroom Vroom?
Sometimes I'm funny. So let's the whole point of the stream is about playtime and the way we played. We've kind of went off on tangents about toy design and all that, which is, it happens. People always want to get to know the guest on their own terms. So when you played as a kid, how this is an open-ended question, but I'll clarify. How did you play? Like, were you kind of a sit down in one spot in a room kind of kid? Like you just sat down, let's say, on the couch and you played on the couch, or were you kind of the world was your oyster and it didn't matter? You just, if you had, I don't know, the Whale, for example, were you limited to that one area, or did you take it all these different places out the house? Or
I was definitely a solo play kid. I had older brothers who beat the shit out of me, so
same.
I never wanted to like play with them, and that's like they were older. I'm the youngest, so it was like I didn't want to get beat up. so I was just very much into my own world and doing my own thing. I'm still like, even today, like I could be very much a loner at times, just do it, like, let me do my own thing. But I mean, I love hanging out with my friends and stuff. But as far as like doing stuff, I like just like doing stuff on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had my areas that I played, and that was kind of it. I liked having a setup, like a setup area. I didn't like venturing out into other areas of the house. Like, I wanted my area to be my area. And I can remember like the best area I had to play with stuff was my one house when I was in like elementary school. Going down into the basement, there was built-in like workbenches, and it was in like a U shape. And I basically, just like me as like 8 years old, told my dad, like, I'm taking these workbenches. My dad's like, you're not going to take the workbench, but he gave me half of the U.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having the Batman Returns Wayne Manor Batcave Axis
nice.
Chemicals fold out.
Mm-hmm.
But I had it set up so you can have the Wayne Manor set up, have the Batcave area set up, Axis Chemicals set up, and then I had like the whole Batcave area where I had all the Batmobiles and I had all the Batman figures set up. Like, that was his armor, his Hall of Armor kind of deal. And I remember then going up the stairs. There was like the concrete wall, but there was like a ledge on the wall. Like, the wall came down a small like 3-inch ledge and then came back down again. And I remember like I would play on that ledge constantly. I was, when the Kenner Predator figures came out, like during that time, Batman was big for me. It wasn't so much G.I. Joe. Like, G.I. Joe, I still play with a lot, but to me, Batman was like the focus at that time. Like, 89 Batman was a huge influence on me. Batman Returns, huge influence on me. So Batman was big for me during those early 90s times. And, I would play with Batman and the Predator, but I would basically reenact the whole fight in Predator 2. Danny Glover is holding on and he cuts the Predator's arm off. Like, I would just play that scene over and over again with Batman and the Predator. And I would like to, like, I had an imagination and I like kind of coming up with my own stories, but I also like playing stories that were in comics or movies. So I remember when I got the Superpowers Robin, and then I got the Toy Biz Robin, who was a different sculpt. And then I got the Tim Drake Batman Returns Robin. To me, it was like, well, the middle Toy Biz Robin was Jason Todd, and then the Superpowers one was Dick Grayson. So there was all three Robins, and I would always do the Dick Grayson transitioning to Nightwing storyline, and I would always do the Death of Robin storyline. And then the new Scarecrow, I had the Batman animated Scarecrow because he was the only Scarecrow they made. And then the Tim Drake storyline when Tim Drake becomes Robin. So it was like, I loved reliving those storylines, playing with Batman stuff. But as far as like with G.I. Joe stuff, it was different. G.I. Joe, I would like to just set them up in battle. And I like just visualizing that. And, those I would play with outside. If a guy died, I'd bury him, but then I'd dig him back up. And my best friend up the street, he was a vehicles kid and I was a figures kid. So it was easy for us to play together. It was the only time I played with like other kids. Was I would bring my Joes to his house and he would have the vehicles, and, we would, he would use my figures and I'd use his vehicles. So, that all kind of worked out. But, that was the Batman stuff are vivid memories of what, I was playing with. Star Wars, like when I was collecting vintage Star Wars figures, when I was like 7 or 8, like that got really, really cool. I remember getting a Millennium Falcon at a flea market. So it was fun just playing in the Millennium Falcon, but then, the Power of the Force stuff came out. The Power of the Force stuff came out, and it was just as I was transitioning between like playing with them and then becoming a collector. Like, to me, it was like, I was still kind of playing with them, but also I liked setting them up on a shelf kind of thing and like seeing my collection. So that was like where it started to transition.
Yeah. That's, I find, similar. If I knew a lot about, kind of the lore or the mythos for a show, like I was really big into the Dragon Ball Z Irwin figures, because I was at that age when they started hitting stores in America, or at least from my recollection. So I would play out the scenes from the show with those figures. But if it was something I didn't know a lot about, like G.I. Joe, for example, had a bunch of them, had never seen the show, I was able to use my imagination. And whenever I would buy a figure, it'd be like, this guy looks really cool. I want him because I can use him for this. Where Dragon Ball Z, I was like, oh, I really don't like this character, but I need this person for this particular part that I need to play through. Because if I don't get them, I can't connect plot A to plot C. I need them for that B plot kind of thing.
Yep.
So
I remember like when the Shadow came out. Now I to this day I still love the Shadow, and I have like most of the Shadow figures, and I actually just bought I gotta actually tell Michael French about it because he and I were talking about it last time we talked. I was looking for the mail away hologram Shadow ring, and I found one on eBay last night and I bought it. But when the Shadow came out, I loved the figures, but then I started to like play with the Shadow like in my Batman world, and I wasn't sure if that was okay because I'm like, well, the Shadow takes place in like the old times. I just called them the old times. I didn't know what era it was. But then I remember going to the comic book store, and you know how they had the expensive comics on the back wall?
Oh yeah.
They had the Batman issue from the 70s when he meets the Shadow. And I was like, Dad, you got to buy that for me. Bought it for me. And I was like, wait a second. The Shadow can play with Batman. So to me, it was perfect.
Game changer.
Yep. Total game changer.
Yeah. That's we talked about this briefly the other day. I had one figure from the Shadow, and it was the translucent one. And I don't remember what happened to him, but I know he was turning yellow by the time he left.
Yeah. So, hey, at least it wasn't the shirtless version.
Yeah, true. So that kind of dovetails us into another favorite from this show is outside versus inside toys. You'd mentioned that you played with G.I. Joe outside. Was there any exclusivity for that? Like these toys do not go outside, or was it all no holds barred? Like it didn't matter what it was?
I don't recall ever taking anything outside that wasn't G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe was the outside toy. Everything else kind of stayed inside. Oh, I was big in the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves line because I was in during that 92 era. I had the whole line. I got Sherwood Forest for Christmas. I would bring that up because it was almost like I took Sherwood Forest, which is the Ewok Village. Right. I could put that outside like in the foliage and stuff like that, and it was an extension of Sherwood Forest. So those toys I took outside, Joe toys. But if the setting wasn't like outdoors, I didn't play with them outdoors. So to me, it was like Batman stuff, and everything else stayed inside. Joe, Robin Hood can go outside.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was most of my outside was role play, which is something I haven't really talked about much on this show. Was like pretending to be in G.I. Joe or anything like that, which that was most of my outdoor stuff.
Gotcha.
So
yeah, role play was big for me in those early 90s times.
That was around the time that you could still buy a toy gun that looked real except for an orange tip.
Yep.
I'll never forget. I had basically, knowing now, a saw gun that had like a bipod on it and everything. And it had a gold ammo belt that you would squeeze the trigger and it actually feed through it. Awesome. And you could link it because there was no beginner end, so you could just link it in a continuous loop. And it would just spin the whole way through. And that was my immediate go-to every time because that's what Arnold Schwarzenegger used.
Was it? I think it was our show on Iconicon with Tony where I talked about this, where when you go to Toys R Us and they had the gun aisle and they had a wooden rack that had metal guns. They had the orange tip, but you could take the orange tip out, but they were all metal. And I remember it had wood stocks. And someone in the chat told me it was the Paris Manufacturing Company, and I looked it up, and it's like sure enough. And I got a lever action, and you had to cock that thing was hard, but it made a loud bang.
Yep.
And I would play with that thing all the time. And me and my best friend who had the vehicles, this was right during Desert Storm. And, back then it was like Desert Storm. It wasn't like war is bad like it is now. It was like it was praised. And I had Desert Storm trading cards, and it was like a big thing. And he and I got Desert Storm fatigues, BDUs, for Halloween, and we were Desert Storm troopers. So we would constantly like dress up and play, war is like Desert Storm characters, and that was big for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's yeah, that was I remember those days fondly. My dad, as a hand-me-down, he gave me some toy rifle that he had that was a bolt action, and when you pulled the bolt back, there was actually a wooden bullet
Yep,
inside
I
on a
remember
spring,
that.
and you would shove it forward, and that was once the saw gun, because you get big, you grow in size. The saw gun was made for little kids. Weirdly enough, it was made for like 4 and 5 year olds. So, because by the time I got to like 11, 12, it was a small little gun. And so that's what I would use. I'd run around the backyard, and weirdly, that's how I kind of learned how to load weapons, was through Playtime. So it's
yeah, the good old days, man.
Yeah,
good old days.
No orange tip on that one either, because that was from when my dad was a kid.
Huh.
So, but I was not allowed to leave the property with it. I couldn't go to the park or anything because it looked real.
Oh, I gotcha.
It was wood and metal, had a sling on it and everything. So, good times, good times. So, Greg Finstad, which is a name I don't recognize, so welcome. He says, I was always a bases forts kind of player. I would build forts out of anything: pillows, blankets, snow, rocks, mulch, trees, etc. Was that your experience? If you didn't have it, you just make it?
Yeah, I mean, we're me and my best friend that I talked about before, like we lived next to our elementary school, and behind the elementary school there was woods. So we were always in there, and like older kids brought plywood in there and stuff like that. So we would build forts in those woods. And I have so many memories of those woods. And to me, it was like those woods seemed enormous. And I remember when I was older, in my 20s, me and my brother, we went back to visit family down there, and we went by the school, and like the woods were so tiny. It was like wasn't even an acre's worth of like woods, but to us, like it felt so big that we knew like quadrants, and we knew like certain areas, like this one tree that fell down where all the thorns were. We had a peeing spot. There was like a hole in the bottom of the tree that we would pee into all the time. I saw my first porno mag in there because we had lifted up a piece of plywood looking for salamanders, and someone had stashed, porno mags under there, and they were all wet and soggy and shit. But it was like, here I am, like 6, 7 years old, like seeing that for the first time. It was kind of wild. But yeah, I was all up in those woods, and I look at it now, and my house now, like my backyard has a lot of rocks and trees, and I live up against woods. And so there's like a lot of rocks on the property. And I remember like when we were buying the house, my wife was like, oh, is this gonna, it's not a huge yard, but she's like, is this okay? I'm like, my son Mason, I'm like, he's gonna have such a good time climbing over all these rocks, because he's literally a clone of me. And every day he like 8 o'clock in the morning, he's like, Dad, I'm gonna go get dressed, I'm gonna go outside. All right, let's go. It's like, I'm not saying let's go. I'm like, come on, I want to have breakfast, or I want to drink my tea. I'm like, all right, fine, go outside. But he goes outside, and it's like all he does is climb on the rocks, and I like love seeing it, because I'm like, I knew he'd love it, because that's what I loved as a kid. So I was all about forts and playing outside. As much as I played inside with toys, I was an outside kid, man. We didn't have video games or anything like that. So it was like we experienced life as a kid, and we had fun doing that kind of stuff.
We ate dirt.
Yeah.
I have two stories, actually, speaking about woods and playing outside and all that. Just a funny story, because you're talking about the pee hole and all that. So I consider myself lucky enough. I was at that sweet spot age when the prequels came out for Star Wars. I was 10 when the first one came out. But I was also like 11, 12 when Lord of the Rings started.
Ooh.
So when we went outside, this is Mirkwood. This is like, it was this whole, 11 acres of property with 99% of it being forest. It was like, you get to Toy Biz Lord of the Rings, and you could actually have like Boromir out there getting shot by Uruk-hai and all that. Like, it was super fun. So, as boys do, this is the embarrassing story. I think I've told this story before. I think, but I'm going to tell it again, because it's what's comedy? It's tragedy plus time. So, as boys do, you pee outside. You learn from a very early age, I have to pee. Well, I don't have to go inside. I'll just pee right here. So you do. Well, I was 9, 10, pretty young, old enough to know better, probably, but I was a dumb kid. Not much has changed. Um, and I was like, well, if I can pee out here, surely I can take a shit. And
I had
so,
a feeling that's where it was going.
yep. So I was just like, okay, and just popped a squat and went about my day, continued playing. And then Dad came out to mow the lawn eventually, and he was like, "The hell is this?" And I was already inside by then, probably balls deep in Super Metroid or something. And he was like, you want to explain that out there? What are you talking about? So yours truly had to go out with a Walmart bag and pick up after
Oh,
themselves. So, because I wasn't smart, I was smart enough to be like, yeah, I'll just poop out here. Not smart enough to be like, I should probably bury this.
right.
But
My son asks if he could poop outside all the time. Now
hell
he's
yeah.
5, and we have an area off our back deck on the side of our house that is all fenced in. I put pea gravel down. It's where our dogs, go to the bathroom and during the day. He's asked if he could pee in there. I'm like, sure, bud, knock yourself out. So I'll pee in there, but like he's asked a couple times, like, can I poop in here? And I'm like, no, go in the house, man. And we've been on several like walks down. There's like go back the woods in my complex, and there's like this creek. We've gone down there, and he's probably shit 3 times in those woods just because I'm like, I'll ask him before we leave the house, like, gotta go to the bathroom? No. Second we get there, Daddy, I gotta pee, and then he's peeing, and he's like, actually, I gotta poop. I'm like, yeah, I bet you do. So he's pooped in a lot of woods.
Hell yeah. And probably shit's like a grown man too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
huge dumps.
So it's shocking.
Yep.
Yep. But yeah, that's God. Those are the memories that are going to stick with him too. He'll remember that. Like sometime in his 20s, he'll be like, "Remember the time I shit with my dad when I was on a walk?" Like,
Well, I the first time like it ever happened, we weren't prepared. It's like I didn't bring any wipes or anything like that. We just went for a little nature hike, and I tried to get him to kind of squat, and he squatted, but he peed on his underwear. So I was like, I didn't have anything to wipe his ass, and his underwear are wet now. So I'm like, I had a receipt in my pocket, but it's like I felt bad because then it's like I had to carry him, and it's kind of sit like I didn't want his car seat to go wet, so I had like a Target bag that I put down his car seat. So, but he was like all wet, piss wet, and
right.
now it's like when we go, I have my bug out bag, and it's like I got wipes in there, so we just got to go. We can take care of business.
Tack dad.
Yep.
So then that's the part of the reason, or something I shouldn't. English is very difficult, so I like having parents on this stream, like Ryan and all that, people who are raising sons and children and all that, because I don't have kids of my own. And I'm always interested to know how Playtime works with them, whether you can see, like, through coaching or not, just watching them play, how much they do that you did. Like, if he just had, let's say, G.I. Joe, if you can see him, like, recreating and doing things that you did, but you didn't tell him.
Yeah, I mean, he plays very different. You can tell he's grown up in a more tech age. We try not to let them watch a lot of TV, but it's like, and when he watches TV, he wants to watch stuff on YouTube, so it's weird, that kind of thing. But like watching his play patterns, like going outside, seeing him pick up a stick and calling it a shooter or a blaster, I'm so proud of him. His role play stuff is the same, but as far as like figure play, it's a little different. He was real big into Matchbox cars and trucks as a little kid, but also I think his way of playing is different because when I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money and 3 older brothers, so it was like a lot of stuff was hand-me-downs, a lot of stuff was garage sale stuff. So my son now, it's like, since I didn't grow up with money, I wanted my son to grow up knowing what it was like to be able to have stuff. And but it's also like he's like a privileged kid now, and like he's kind of an asshole sometimes when it's like every time we go to Target, he's like, can I buy a toy? And I'm like, but it's not like, because I bought him so much over time. We always get our kids stuff that it's like he doesn't appreciate the stuff he has because he's always getting new stuff.
Right.
So we're trying to back off that now, and when we go to Target, it's like, no, like, yeah, we'll go down the toy aisle because I want to go down the toy aisle.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot of times now it's like, okay, well, you can get something if I get something, but I haven't been getting much because, our area sucks up here and I can't find anything. So it gets kind of bummed when he can't get something, but it's like he has one GI Joe, figures. He's not real big into like action figures. He likes building stuff, that sort of thing, a more engineering type mind, whereas I had a more, action figure organic kind of mind. So that's very different. But the thing that makes me really proud is when, it's like when I would work down in my office, down in my Joe room, he would come down and he'd say, Dad, can I play with some of your toys? And he would immediately go to the bug and he'd play with that. He would play with the hammerhead. So it was like he would make a total mess of all the vehicles, but he loved playing with them. And, he'd bring like I'll find like a Paw Patrol figure stuffed in the cockpit of the bug. But at the same time, I was proud that he was down there playing with all my GI Joes. And even now, like my daughter, she's 2, she's big into dolls, but she loves, like, she'll go down to my Joe room because my bearded dragon is down there, and she'll want to go and feed the dragon and pet him. But then I have 2 night ravens and a rattler hanging from the ceiling, and she loves to go and push them and make them kind of like fly back and forth. So we'll just walk around the room and she'll hit it like 10 or 12 times just because she wants to just see them fly. And it's like when I had my infinity gauntlets there, she would love to push the button and make the gems light up and hear the power noise. So that's kind of cool. But very different.
And experience it through fresh eyes almost.
Yeah.
World Made of Cardboard says, thank you for the super chat, by the way. It says, obvious question from me. Did you make any cardboard play sets or toys homemade or purchased?
The biggest thing, cardboard for me, was whenever my mom was done with wrapping paper, I would spend, which felt like an eternity. It was probably 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. Getting my crayons at the box of Crayola crayons, and I got silver and I got green, and I painted that sumbitch up like a green lightsaber. Every time. I can't tell you how many hours of time have been spent coloring paper rolls into green lightsabers that just got destroyed within minutes. So definitely, those were the big cardboard thing for me, which I'm sure every kid did as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That I think I sent you that meme a long time ago with the Hulk. It's like me with my cardboard sword, and I hit it on one thing.
Yep.
Yeah, they were fun for about 10 minutes until they made that first contact. So every once in a while, you'd get that one that was just a little bit thicker.
Yeah.
Made a boom sound when you hit things.
Yep.
Those things were great. So the first time I got one of those is actually from a roll of paper towels. My dad gave me the one in the middle, and that was my first one. So I think it's just something instinctual, which I think there's got to be something instinctual, like ingrained in us, because like you said, your son will pick up a stick or something, and that's just, we all did it as kids, and I don't know where it comes from.
Yep.
Just this instinctual thing that we do, I guess.
Yeah, I remember my son colored, a lightsaber paper roll, and I was so proud. I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Hell yeah. So let's see here. So you mentioned that you don't play with your siblings at all, because much like yourself. So weirdly, my older brother is your age, so then that's the gap between us. Like there's no one in between us. It's just a 7-8 year gap, whatever it is, depending on the time of year, of course. So playing with him was not what I would consider playtime. It was I would sit there while he would kind of take over everything, and I wouldn't get to play. But you mentioned playing with your best friend, your neighbor, and all that, and that you were more of a solo player. Did you have a preference? Like, was there ever a time where you were playing with a friend or something, and you're just like, you know what, like I'd rather just be doing this on my own, or like I don't know if that question makes much sense the way that I phrased it.
It was more of a like in the morning, got dressed and went to, we were playing outside like right away. And to me, playing with like my toys was like an after dinner at night thing. What I did. But the only time I remember like making a conscious decision was my friend was not a fan of the Robin Hood movie or The Line. And I remember he would make fun of me for being a fan of having all the Robin Hood figures. And he was like, don't bring those to my house. And I remember like, kids, like if someone's mean to you and you're like 6 or 7, like that shit's cold, man.
It's devastating.
So I remember like if I wanted to play with my Robin Hood stuff, I like had to do it at home, like in secret. And I purposely like would play with the stuff in my bedroom and then I'd stuff it in the closet when I was done, because if he would come to my house, I'd go to his house. If he came to my house, I didn't want him to see my Robin Hood stuff out. Like, that was something that definitely affected me.
Oh yeah. It's crazy how when you're a kid, having a friend, like your friend, you get into one disagreement or something like that happens, like one thing is said and you're just like, I guess we're not friends anymore.
I know.
Like I mean, there are adults on the internet that are still like that, unfortunately, but yeah. Oh well. So we touched on playsets a little bit when you talked about the Wayne Manor and the Batcave and all that. Were you a playset kind of kid, or were you I'm a big fan of what I call like the micro sets from G.I. Joe, like the machine gun defense or something like where it's small and can augment, but I'm not stuck to it. Like I can set it up on a bookshelf and that's a defense turret, but I don't have to play there. I can go do other things.
I gotcha. See, I was a playset kid, even though like we didn't have the money for playsets, but like the Batcave, I remember getting the Batcave because me and my brother, like he knew I wanted the Batcave and he wanted to help me get the Batcave. So we had a garage sale that we didn't tell our parents about. And we basically just sold stuff from inside the house. I think at the time, like, I think that Batcave was like $100, which was super expensive at the time, maybe 80. But we made a ton of money off that garage sale, and I think we made the $100. And my dad brought us to Toys R Us, and I can remember in Toys R Us exactly where it was, and it was this huge box, and we got it. And like my brother like did that for me because he knew I wanted the Batcave. But I remember I pulled a Terradrome out of the garbage and carried it home. It was like I carried that thing home like a half a mile. But yes, someone had thrown it in. It was like a shell of it. It had maybe one turret gun, it maybe 2 doors,
right.
But 2 seats. Like it was missing a ton. But to me, it was like that find was like the greatest thing ever. So I remember like it felt so heavy and it was huge just carrying it home. And then I remember in middle school, my friend had a Defiant, and he wasn't a G.I. Joe fan, yet he had this Defiant, and he was a really nice kid, but he was like one of the kids that like got made fun of by everyone, and I didn't know why. Like he and I were really good friends, and like they would like make fun of me that I was friends with him, but we hung out all the time. He was like kind of this recluse, and he was really good at video games. Like I would go there and watch him play, like Street Fighter. He would like get perfects beating everyone, and like it was like he was like a master like at video games. But he had all this stuff. I remember he had the Kenner Dark Knight Batman stuff. For those of you who know, that stuff's really rare, like the turbojet Batwing and the Batmobile that had the flip up guns and the turbo thruster and can seat it had seat one figure, but it had the canopy on it. It was like the quintessential Batmobile. That thing goes for like $300 now. He valued our friendship so much that he would just give me stuff. And I'm like, well, no, this is yours. And like, I'm like, is it okay with your mom? And she's like, oh, if he wants to give it to you, let him, he can give it to you. And I remember like, he lived in like a 2-family house, and we would go in, but I would never see like the rest of his house because we would just go to his room and we would play video games, or I'd watch him play video games. And I remember one day, like we were in his dining room and like huddled in the corner, like behind a curtain filled with dust was this Defiant.
Mhm.
And I was like, you have a Defiant? Now, he didn't have any other G.I. Joes, no other vehicles, just a Defiant. And he goes, do you want it? And I was like, yeah. I had to call, like, his house, I would walk to his house. It was only like quarter mile from my house. But like I had to call my dad and say, Dad, you got to pick me up because I'm bringing this thing home. My dad was like, what do you mean? What are you bringing home? So my dad had to like come up and help me carry the thing down the stairs. It was missing a ton of stuff, but it had both doors, both ships. The crank still worked.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, to me, I was like, whoa, I got this free Defiant. So a lot of the playsets I got were like from the trash or free. So, but I appreciated them even though they like weren't complete and were all banged up.
Right.
You know, so, you know, those things were definitely monumental. Those, the Batcave, the Terradrome, and Defiant.
Mm-hmm. It's that just owning it versus having a museum piece kind of thing.
Oh, and Sherwood Forest. Yeah.
That's a characteristic that's carried on into my normal collecting, even as an adult. Like having the figure is more important than having all the parts to it. Like,
sure.
When I get a G.I. Joe, like Ryan, out of the goodness of his heart, when he went to like Joe Fest and all that, he's like, "Hey, what are you looking for?" And I sent him pictures of figures that I'm after, and I was like, "I don't need the accessories; just the figures is fine." Because as soon as if I got something as a kid, I'm like, "Oh man, I can't wait to open this up," and the weapons are gone. Like, because I had like one shotgun that all my G.I. Joes had to share. It's just the way that it was. So as an adult now, I'm like, I don't need every single piece. I just want like the main components.
Gotcha. See, I'm a completist now, but like back then as a kid, I just didn't care. I remember finding a Duke for 10 cents at a garage sale. Mm-hmm. And to me, just the fact that like I found Duke, I found the leader of G.I. Joe, like that was a huge day for me. And shoot, man, that's like I could remember that day like it was yesterday. And what was I, 6 years old maybe?
Wow. Yeah, good luck finding a Duke for 10 cents now.
I know, right?
You might find his dick for 10 cents. I got the not the mail away Duke, but I did get a Duke, and he came. I got a really good deal on him. One of the time, like he came with everything, which I already mentioned is not that important to me. It's just that's just the way he was being sold, and he was about the same price as just Duke by himself. So I was like, okay, I'll get that one. I got him. He was great, standing on my display, and I forget. I was on someone's live stream. I don't remember which one it was or where it was. I pulled him down, and I just to look at him, and I moved his leg like a fraction of a hair, and the dick just snapped off of my hand. I was like, son of a bitch.
Duke was made very brittle. Like I remember I had to replace my current Duke because I went to put him on a stand, and the stand cracked his heel. Like you see Dukes, a lot of Dukes are broken. They're just like, it was for sometimes you get a figure that the plastic run is just off a little bit, sometimes like when people find like the Masters of the Universe, who was it that broke out of the package for you? Trapjaw or
Triclops?
Triclops.
I literally grabbed him by the foot because I like to pull the legs up first. Grabbed him by the foot, tugged, and just snapped.
Sometimes that day, whatever they're running that day, the temperature, if it needs a 3-minute cool down time and it comes out 2 minutes 50 seconds, like that could be detrimental to a run. And it's like I got the dark side, like my dark side figure, it snapped at the arm. I saw someone on Instagram, the same exact arm, the same exact thing happened. So it could just be like that day or that run, whoever was working at putting that piece together, something could happen. So because a run of a toy line is done over several months, there could just be that one day that's off. Some people are like, oh, this broke, this thing's shit. Like, no, it could just be that day something was off, or the plastic, like the mix was just slightly off. But Dukes are kind of notorious for breaking.
So that's why I affectionately refer to him as Mr. Glass. So I still have it. I have him in a baggie somewhere around here. His dick's in the bag, so I'm just going to super glue it back on. But I don't know, that it was just kind of you see these things happening, and I mean, I barely, like, I'll just use updraft here. He was standing like this, and I just went, like that, not
Just-
even negligible, and just snapped
Yeah.
Queen off. Which watch him not stand up now because I did that. Oh, okay, make a liar out of me. That's fine. One of my childhood favorites, Updraft. Never had a ship. Only ever had him, but one of my favorites. Unrelated, just a non sequitur. So, but yeah. So, talking about more playtime and collecting GI Joes and all that. When would you say that you transitioned? Because I mean, you kind of touched on it already, but transitioned from a toy buyer, like playing, to being a collector.
It was so when I was getting like vintage Star Wars figures in the mid 90s,
Mm-hmm.
it was like I think like you'd go to like a flea market and there'd be the guy that had them kind of in the glass case.
Mm-hmm.
And like they started to be something that was coveted, but it wasn't like there were astronomical prices. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe a Bespin Luke was $10 or $15.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the high side of things. I remember things were attainable. Like you could buy stuff. I remember my friend when we went to a toy show, he bought an AT-AT for $100, which I guess at the time was a lot of money, but it's not like now where things are just like crazy prices. So getting the vintage Star Wars figures, I was still playing with stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't until Power of the Force 2 where it became collecting. So Power of the Force 2 came out, but then so Power of the Force 2 was 95,
Mm-hmm.
and then that I was getting everything through the later half of the 90s. Episode 1 was 2000 or 99, right? 99.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember in 2000, me and my friend, like he was a wrestling collector and I was a Star Wars collector. And every Saturday we would run the gauntlet. He would pick me up,
Mm-hmm.
we'd get high like stupid young kids did. And we went to a Kmart, we went to 2 Toys R Us's, we went to 2 KBs. Like he would pick me up at like 11 and we would spend until like 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon just running this gauntlet and just going to all these places like looking for stuff. And we do that every week. And we ended up finding this collectible store. Like this is when collectible stores started to come up. Like you had comic book stores that sold some toy stuff, but that was the prime time for like Pokemon cards. Like 2000,
Mm-hmm.
2001.
Yep.
Starting lineups were coming out. The Jax wrestling figures were big, and the Star Wars figures were big. And we found this collectible store, and the guy's prices were really high, so we wouldn't really buy much there. But then all of a sudden, like the guy hired us. Like we were in high school, and he goes, "Hey, do you kids want jobs?" And he was an idiot. He didn't, he would work a lot of like shows, but then he would use the store as like a place to just keep stuff. So
Right.
he was never there. He just left 2 high school kids like run his shop. So we ended up like stealing stuff and
Yeah, right.
we were like putting stuff aside. And, so it's like that was collecting. Like that was hardcore collecting time. So definitely by 99, 2000, it became a collecting obsession. But also, I was getting other stuff. Like I remember like seeing the stuff that McFarlane was putting out and they were like works of art. So I would just, I just buy like stuff that I thought was cool. The Legend stuff was coming out. That was really cool. There was some DC stuff that was being put out that was really cool. So that was definitely the transition, but definitely Power of the Force 2 was the line that switched me over to being a collector.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's one of those things you don't realize is happening until it's happened. Then you can look back, oh yeah, that was the transition.
Yeah.
Like, for me, Dragon Ball Z was that. Like I was playing with him, and all of a sudden I was like, well, now I need Bulma, and now I need this character, now I need that character. And
sure.
Gets wet. I think I had like 80 of them by the end of it. Yeah, because you got to think like there's multiple versions of multiple characters, and each version of them has a specific role that they fit in the show. And but Jim Largo, thank you for the super chat, says, "Thanks for Iconicon. You're welcome. Did you guys have soundtracks for play? His dad gave him the Star Wars score on cassette. It was an awesome background sound. And I'll go first only because I literally just remembered this. That triggered this deep-seated memory. So I wasn't into wrestling. I wasn't allowed to watch it. My older brother was, but my mom said it was too violent for me to watch. Meanwhile, she bought me Turok 2 for Nintendo 64, which is extremely violent.
Okay.
So I was allowed to watch Terminator and things like that. Like, I don't know what the disconnect between wrestling, but either way, my brother had wrestling video games. And so I'd learned the concept of like walk-in music. And I would, I had this CD that my brother had made me, just a mixed CD of bands I didn't really know. Like Godsmack was on there. Saliva was on there. Basically, like late 90s, early aughts rock bands were on there. And I would do this thing where I had this, it used to be some piece of, I guess, art, for the lack of a better word. It was like fur or something that hung on this wooden placard that my dad used to have. Then the fur came off, and I just kept the wood part, and that was a wrestling ring tournament little platform. And I would switch through songs and have them walk on to different things in music. And my Spawn figure would walk on to Voodoo by Godsmack. I don't know what, like, that was a deep-seated, I just remembered that. So.
Interesting. My story is a little more embarrassing.
Uh-oh.
But I know when Michael hears it, he will appreciate the story probably more than anything I've ever told him. In the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves movie, it had this hit song by Bryan Adams, Everything I Do It For You. And I didn't have the single of it. Mm-hmm. I remember, though, I had a tape recorder. It was a big box, big box with a carry handle. You could put a tape in and hit record and play at the same time, and it would record through the microphone. Mm-hmm. And I had a cassette tape. I don't know if it was a blank one or one I copied over from my brothers or something like that. Who knows? Maybe it was like Metallica or something like that, or Guns N' Roses. But I waited. I put on MTV and waited one day for it to come on, because it was, the video would come on. And as soon as the video came on, I'd hit record, and I'd have to be quiet in my room, make sure no one came in till it recorded the song. And when I would play with my Robin Hood figures, I would put the song on. But it was only like a 3-minute song, so I could play for 3 minutes, and then it was over. I'd have to hit stop, rewind to the beginning, play it again, go back to playing. So it was like I would do that the whole time I was playing with my figures. I would play this shitty, recorded off TV copy of Bryan Adams.
Extremely lo-fi kind of stuff.
Song still holds up, man.
Yeah, I think it's a good song. Unapologetically, I like Bryan Adams. So I don't think Canada needs to apologize for him at all.
Not at all.
So
not at all.
Greg Fenstad has a good question, which brings up something. He asks, what was your favorite, what he calls the G.I. Joe accessory packs, which were the ammo depot, the mortar defense set, machine gun set, and the bivouac, which is actually my favorite, and I've never owned it. I just love the way that it looks.
I never had any of them as a kid, so I couldn't tell you if the only thing I did have was there's a case of mortars from the ammo depot. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing I ever had, and I never knew like what it went to until like years and years later. So I didn't have a favorite one. I mean, I love them today. I think they're such a great item. I would love to do something like that for Action Force, but but. Sorry, man. I didn't have a favorite because I didn't know what they were.
Yeah, that's a lot of my, like, I had I know what they are now, but as a kid, like, I had chunks of them because I forget where I told this story, but in middle school I had the Micro Machine Star Trek little sets that had like the big set that's like 30 of the ships or whatever. Gotcha. And this upperclassman who was an extreme upperclassman, because I remember he was infamous for having been held back twice in elementary school. So he was a freshman, so he should have been like a junior or whatever. And I was just this little 7th grader, like, hey guys, what's going on? And he was very interested in owning the Star Trek ships, and he had all these G.I. Joes. And so we just didn't even swap. And I ended up with a ton of GI Joes. That's how I ended up with Updraft. How I got a bunch of my favorites basically. And he gave me parts and chunks of things. Like he gave me, in hindsight, an almost complete Havoc, but it was in parts. So I didn't know that certain things went to it, like the grates, the green grates that went over the tracks.
Yeah.
Had no idea what they went to. So, and I didn't know that the hover part of the Havoc was a part of the Havoc until one day I just kind of went clunk and sat it down. I was like, oh, that's a part of that. So I had parts like the machine gun for the machine gun defense and all that, which I assume you have them now, Bobby.
Yes.
Because I was saying, 'cause I'm pretty sure you have a complete run.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not at all.
But yeah, I love those things. So, and if they do show up in Action Force, I will be ordering several.
It's cool now, like, over the last like 5 or 7 years, whereas like my Joe collection really, got completed, is going back and getting stuff that I never had as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I'm getting it for the first time and being able to like appreciate it as an adult is really cool. Like I didn't have a Night Raven, so seeing like a Night Raven and completing, like I used to like getting a vehicle, a shell, and spending more than I probably should have to complete it, rather than buying a complete one. So like my whale, like I have 2 whales. I also have the the Night Force whale. So it's like that stuff, even like a flag, like getting a flag. Like I never believed it existed until it's like I have one. So seeing all this stuff for the first time is like really, really cool. And I have a
sounds like my girlfriend's in middle school. She goes to a different school. You wouldn't know her.
Yeah. I have a tactical battle platform that I have in the box, and it's all sealed in its bags. And I've been meaning to do a live stream where I open it up. And I know it's kind of like blasphemy, like you don't do that, but I want to experience what that's like to take that out and put it all together, put the labels on, and just build that playset that I never saw as a kid. Like that's something I'm really looking forward to doing. It's been sitting in my room for 5 years.
I support that 100%. I am very much in Michael's camp, where we're toy collectors, not box collectors.
Yes.
Toys are meant to be opened and enjoyed.
Yep.
That's what they were designed for. I understand.
So like go ahead,
Bob. I was going to say, I understand having some mint on card. Like I've got Bosk here, but I've also got probably 10 loose Bosks. Like if it's my very favorite, like General Flag, which is no one's favorite, I understand. He was my very first GI Joe that I know was a GI Joe. Like I had a couple hand-me-downs from my older brother that I didn't know what they were, but he was the first GI Joe I got new. So to me, he's my first GI Joe. I have him on card only because he has a very special place. But beyond that, like I don't understand these. I only collect mint in box or mint on card. Kind of, it's like open them up, enjoy them. That's what they're there for. So,
well, that's like with Action Force. It's like, I've said from the start, like this line is for play and display. Like there's a file card you can cut off the back, and like I get it, but it's like I've had people say like, how are you packaging your boxes? I want to make sure that like mine are perfect. I'm an inbox collector. It's like, all right, I get it. That's not what this line. It's not what this line is for. If you get yours and it's like, hey, I have a little nick on the cardboard over here. Listen, man, it's cardboard. Like it's cardboard. I know Big Bad, like they do something where you could pay extra to have it like perfect.
Collector grade. Yeah, $4 extra.
Yeah, it's like that's not what the line is for. I'm not going to send the stuff and have it be crushed and damaged, but it's going to be well taken care of. But if, like I said, if there's like a little nick or something like that, like maybe the line's not for you. These figures are meant to be taken out. They're meant to breathe. They're meant to be played with. They're meant to be, there's a reason why they come with a ton of accessories and hands and stuff and a stand with 4 pegs. So it's like, that's what they're meant to do.
Mama said the Action Force figure's so ornery because they got all them points of articulation and no one to move them. Uh-oh, Tony's back.
Woo!
He says, Bobby, which Valaverse action figure character is your favorite?
That's not fair. That's like asking someone who their favorite kid is. Come on, man.
It's Desert Rat.
Listen, man, I'm working on the Desert Rat Paintmaster right now. I'm kind of falling in love with that figure.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's like even like going back, when you were at the office and I was telling you about how I have Series 1 set up for the 1st time, like seeing it all together. It's like I'm looking, I'm like, who is I'm like, who is my favorite? It's like, well, there's a special place for Steel Brigade, but it's like Bone Collector's the first figure I designed. Something magical about Karak, Condor's great. The Swarm Trooper, even Wasp Raider, and then going into Series 2, Rollout was one of the earlier figures I designed, but he got pushed out to Series 2. Eclipse was one that I designed very early on. The Tim figure, to be able to do a Tim Kennedy figure. Then it's like, now it's like Tony's figure. It's like, it's really hard because there's something about all the figures that's really, really special to me. But it's, I can't really say who my favorite is.
Mm-hmm. That's, I didn't tell Ryan anything about it, but I was like, I know something you don't know because of what you had out. So.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah, Sal was the first one to see a figure that I haven't shown yet.
Yeah, I'll say
if Fixer listens to this, he's gonna lose his mind.
It was an accident. It's like when you leave out a porno mag and your dad's like, "What's that?" and you're like, I'm only reading the articles."
This is true. This is true.
No, all I'll say about it is it's awesome. Like that's all I'll say. I'll let you all simmer on that. So it's. I walked in, I saw it, because I didn't even notice it at first, and you're like, "Oh shit!" And like if you hadn't said anything, wouldn't have registered, because that speaks to like what it's supposed to be. That speaks on how well that was designed.
Okay.
If you think about it that way, and as soon as like I was like, "Bing, turkey's done." Like it's beautiful.
It's a good one. Might be the best figure of the whole line. Might be.
Maybe. So let's see. Oh wow, we're Ted Milich asks Kylie in Wave 3.
I feel like I owe Michael. I feel like I have to.
Which, you wouldn't even have to get the likeness rights. I think just an homage name would be the easiest. If you were to do that, that'd be probably the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
So, and Ted Milich confirms that Wave 3 is for the female figures, because someone asked. Yep, because you've gone on record and said Wave 3 is all females, I think?
Yes. Yep. Yes, all females.
So, Gojatron, yes. He says he loves the look of Wasp Raider, but he's a sucker for homages like that. And I tell you, because I told you this when I saw it, like I pre-ordered one, because I was like, well, he's the officer. I have kind of a platoon of Swarm on pre-order. I was like, I only need one officer, because, I've been in situations where there's too much on top and nothing ever gets done. And then I saw it and I was like, oh, I should have gotten more. Like the colors in person on that thing are just the pictures on the BotCon website don't do it justice.
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
Yeah, and everyone loves Wasp Raider. So, or Waspinator, as the case may be. So, but yeah. So let's see what other questions we've got, y'all. I'm trying to think of anything else I may have left out. So we've talked about outside toys, inside toys. We've talked about. Let's talk about play patterns real quick. You'd mentioned that you liked to kind of play out things in the comics and use your imagination at times. Whenever it's a subject that a lot of people don't like to talk about, but since you are in the toy industry, and I'm making some leaps and bounds and assumptions here because I'm not in the toy industry. I'm assuming that studying kids' play patterns kind of affects what gets made, what doesn't get made, all that kind of stuff. How it's a subject that no one really wants to talk about, but how did playing with like female action figures work in for you? Like, because I know myself personally, like I had an April O'Neil with my Ninja Turtles, but I had a hard time playing with her just because she wasn't a ninja. So she pretty much just sat there like Dragon Ball Z is another good example. I had a Bulma and a Chi-Chi for those who don't know, they're regular human characters. They're the wife of Vegeta and Goku, respectively. I think if I said them in the right order. But I had Android 18, who was a female, but she was a fighter. Like she was a known like antagonist at first. So she saw heavy playware, but the other two didn't. So I didn't know if there was any kind of correlation or similar experiences, or maybe I'm just a weirdo.
I'm trying to remember, like, there were very few female figures that I had. I didn't have Scarlet, Lady J, or Baroness. I had the Chun-Li Street Fighter G.I. Joe figure, but I don't remember her really having a big role in my play pattern. The only one that had a big role was the Batman Returns Catwoman, because I remember she's like a really cheap figure to get now, but for me, I felt like she was like a one per case kind of figure. Like she was really hard to find, and it took me a while to get her. But I want her because of seeing the way she battled Batman. I was like, well, I gotta have her because she's got to battle Batman. So she was like the important figure to have, just because she was, I guess, a villain. But thinking back on it now, let me look. Trying to think, like even like Princess Leia's, I had the Princess Leia in the Bouche disguise as far as vintage figures. So, but I can't recall like having them really like intertwined in the storylines that I were doing, except for Catwoman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I find like as an adult collector, we're more a completist, or like we're like, okay, like I'm getting all these characters kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas a kid, if I didn't know what that character could do, like before transitioning into being a collector, like if I was 7 and there was a Bulma on the shelf, hard pass, because Bulma is just annoying in the TV show.
Gotcha.
She's the Mama Trunks, and that's the end of her worth to me. She does more than that in the show. For those listening that may be Dragon Ball Z fans, I know I'm saying end the mindset of a 7-year-old kid. But I think that's just, kind of a good, someone actually brings it up here. Tila is a good example where Tila had kind of gravity or gravitas in the show. She did things, she fought people, like she was cool, versus, a ceremony Leia or something like, okay, like what am I going to do with this? So Princess.
Yeah, I didn't have a Tila, although the one female figure that was kind of important was I was a huge Exo Squad fan, and I think it was Rita Torres. She had this big yellow, it looked like from Alien.
Like the power loader, yeah.
The big power loader, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was, she played a lot, but she also had like a mech suit, so it was kind of not really the same, but I remember her being an important female character, because I like specifically told my parents, like saw her in the Sears wish book. I said, the one I want for Christmas, and I got her. She's fucking super expensive now.
So, and for those that don't know, like Exo Squad is one of those things I think it's largely forgotten.
Yeah.
I got, weirdly enough, I had Exo Squad growing up, or I had a couple. I'd never seen the show, or at least not in any meaningful way. Like I'd probably seen a couple episodes here and there. But I got a couple from a yard sale, and there's a kid, the next house, I would say next door neighbor, but where we lived, your next door neighbor could be pretty far away. But the next house over, he was actually younger than I was, but he had Exo Squad, like significantly, like there's probably 4 years between us. So how he ended up with Exo Squad, I'll never know. But he just gave him to me because he didn't want him anymore. And but that's a long way to get to my point. The show holds up incredibly.
Oh, like, yeah.
It's on, I think it's on Peacock or something now. But for those, like, seriously, go watch Exo Squad. Like, in the first 3 episodes, they hit some heavy topics for a kid's show.
Yeah.
Like,
great show.
Yeah, genetic engineering, race and class, like all sorts of stuff. Because there's like I forget what they're called, but there's like a race of aliens that they created.
Neo Sapiens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they hit some pretty heavy topics, and it's a good ass show.
I love Exo Squad.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
They're almost within arm's reach. I have Alec and Wolf, and I can't read what their mech suits are, but I have them in boxes. So I got them from Matt Swafford, Reclaimers Vintage.
If I'm correct, Alec Delion, he had the communications E-frame, and Wolf Bronsky, he was the heavy weapons because he had the big Gatling gun. I think
Yeah, the
so.
field communications and the ground assault.
Got it. I was close.
It's the green suit and the orange one.
Yep. Yeah, Exo Squad is one of those lines where about 4 years ago, I wanted to go back and it was like after I had finished G.I. Joe, I was like, well, I need something. We all know it's an addiction. So I had to feed that need. And what did I want to collect? I'm like, well, Exo Squad was a line I loved. They are absurdly hard to get. And I remember the line was popular. So you think there was a lot of them. But when you go on eBay, there's not a lot of them. And finding them complete is really hard. And I got to the point where I had about 3/4 of the line. But I had gotten out of the line as a kid before like the last series, which was Cybervision or something like that. Those ones are like $500,000 to like get. Like they're really, really hard to get. And then there's a mail away JT Marsh from the Sega game that's like super impossible to get. And I was like, oh crap, I can't complete this. And it kind of was a turnoff for me when I couldn't complete the line. So then I ended up just selling them. I kept one of them to go my childhood one, but it's a bummer because I look at it now and I'm like, well, shoot, I wish I can get back in that line. But it's like, that was 4 years ago. Inflation now, man, I can't even imagine what the prices look like now. It's probably crazy.
And there's so many parts to them, too, because so many of them had projectiles, and then there's the figures on top of that, and then the little chips that go in the back of the mech suits.
Yep. Yeah, and those chips are hard to get, man.
Or you'll get the suit, and then the cable that connects to the base of their skull is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's speaking of that it's an addiction. I find myself doing this a lot. Like I'll start collecting something and then I'll get to the point where all that's left is the super expensive stuff. And I'm just like, oh God, I can't afford any of that. Or like I can buy this one thing, but I'm not going to be able to buy anything else for 6 months. I'm just going to start collecting something else. And then I end up with like these 60 to 70% complete lines of something and never finishing one thing.
Yep. I did it with He-Man and I did it with Turtles, all within the last like 6 years. So first it was He-Man, got 3/4 of the way, and then I started to get to stuff like Scareglow and King Randor, and I'm like, I'm good, man. And then to me it was like the big or like Laser Light He-Man and Skeletor, which are technically imports, but to me, like they were part of the line. So I had to get them. I was like, well, I'm never going to get those. So I sold my He-Man set. Tried to do it with Star Wars. Tried to do it with Turtles. And it was like all those I just lost interest in really quickly because things. But then Superpowers, you saw my Superpowers collection. I have them all. I have a Mint Cyborg. I also have like the Riddler and the Black Suit Batman. I knew like if I was going into Superpowers, I had to go all in. Like I had to know that Cyborg was going to cost me an absurd amount of money. And it did. I overpaid for him like crazy. But he's mint and he's like perfect. And now it's like I have the whole set. And I love that I have the whole set. But I had to like mentally, I had to prepare myself for getting into it. It's kind of like Dick Tracy. It's like Dick Tracy, you can get the whole entire series for under $100, but the blank is going to cost you $1,000. I don't have a blank. Anyone that comes up is over $1,000. I had the chance to get one for, I think like 400, and I didn't get it, and I'm kicking myself for not getting it. I think it was like 7 years ago I saw that.
Yeah, so. There's always that one. Like Turtles would be oh gosh, when was someone asked me? They had the was it Channel 4 News? Is that the van?
The news van that came with like the green April. Yeah.
Someone said they had that and they wanted me to customize it into the party wagon. I'm like, no. I was like, no. I was like, absolutely not. I was maybe they had it backwards when they chatted that to me, but I was like, absolutely not. Like, no. You can go, but you can get party wagons all day, every day.
Well, yeah.
So, couple super chats, but real quick, Brendan Haley says, "Morning all." He's using this podcast while driving to a physical therapy session. I just want to welcome Brandon. Thank you for listening and dropping by. Let me know. I sent you that thing in the mail. Let me know when you get it, because it was flat enough to where they just considered it mail, so I didn't have to do a customs receipt for it. So there's no tracking. So I don't know when it's getting there. But Jim Largo says, what was your favorite source material for Play Sorrows? Comic, cartoons, or something else? Great interview, guys. So, which I know you've kind of mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, comics and movies. Like I said, like I would get issues of Batman stuff, like Death in the Family, the Tim Drake Robin. Like comics was big then. Obviously, like playing with Star Wars, like the movies were a big influence there, and Batman. It's like other movies influence. Like I said, like I would play Batman versus Predator, but use the Predator 2 kind of storyline. When I think about like cartoons, in the morning, like when I remember G.I. Joe coming on in the morning, like before I went to school. Same thing with like Exo Squad, because I remember I would get ready for school really fast, walk to my friend's house, and we would watch Exo Squad in the morning. So it wasn't like I was playing with the toys while I was watching, because when I was watching cartoons, I wanted to be into the cartoon and not miss anything. So I wasn't playing with stuff during cartoon play. And then I don't know if I used many storylines from cartoons. To me, it was more movies and comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's yeah, I would agree with that. I didn't have much comics where I grew up. We didn't have a comic book shop in the traditional sense until I was well into high school. Like we were lucky if Kroger had like a spinner rack or something in it. I remember
Gotcha.
Kmart had a comic book section at some point around whenever GameCube came out, like 2001, 2002, whenever that came out. Because they had the demos in the store, so I'd go up there and crane and sprain my neck to play it. And I remember comic books being there. I got an Alien comic that had a xenomorph with a pig on the front, and it said, "In space, no one can hear you squeal." No idea what the comic was about, but I remember that. Match 742 says, "Here to show support. He loved Exo Squad. It came on right before school. You said it, hard-hitting topics of racism and people talk about kids shows today, talking about, oh, they're doing that. I'm like, they've been doing that for a while. They were more creative about it in Exo Squad, but it wasn't just kind of like, here you go, plop. Like you have to be paying attention to pick up on it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, oh boy. So we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. I don't want to keep you for too long. We have one final thing to do, and this is the game I like to play. Not too dissimilar from Tony's Sum It Up in One. I have my own game.
Okay.
So you're going to pick a number, just a number between 4 and 12.
4 and 12?
Mm-hmm.
9.
9. And a time of year, summer, spring, fall, whatever.
Summer.
So you were 9 years old and it's the summertime. Walk us through a day in the life of 9-year-old Bobby Vala in the summer.
So that means that was 1991. So 91 was Batman time.
Mm-hmm.
And so 91, I would wake up in the morning, and me and my best friend, we kind of had like this call. It was almost like a bird call. Like we lived probably 5 houses away from each other, but it's like we could do that call and then we'd wait for the other one to do it back. And that's how you knew he was outside ready to play. I'd hear it. I'd come run up the street. We would, we lived by kind of like the Bay Area. So it was like kind of like that swampy, crabby water.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd ride our bikes down. There was this candy store called the Sweet Shop. We would go down there and get, airheads. And we'd go right there by the water, and we would try to catch crabs and, fiddler crabs and regular crabs and stuff like that. And then we'd play in the woods, by that school I was talking about. We were just always outside. And, it was rare that we would play with toys like outside because we were doing more like role play stuff and exploring and things like that. And then we would basically hang out with each other all day long. And then I'd get called home for dinner and eat dinner, and then it was playing with toys. I picked summertime, so there was no school. On a school day, it was like I would watch cartoons in the morning, then go to school. But here it was, wake up in the morning and go right outside and play. And at night, then it was, watching a little TV. But, if we were watching TV as a family, like watching a movie or something like that, I think I usually had a toy with me whenever we watched something, or I was playing in my room with my stuff. So, most likely it was Batman, or when did Prince of Thieves come out? 91 or 92?
I want to say, I think 92, maybe.
I think 92. So it wasn't.
I have memories of it.
So it was definitely. I put money that it was most likely Batman stuff I was playing with.
Yeah.
So
that's. I was telling Michael before that I think I've only seen that movie once, maybe, and I was extremely young, and it scared me because I didn't understand Morgan Freeman's character.
Okay.
And I didn't understand the cesarean, that scene. Like, I didn't get it. So I just thought that some crazy man with an Alibaba sword was going to cut me open in my sleep. So, yeah, I was scared of that movie for a long time. I probably need to revisit it. But,
you got to watch it. It's so good.
Yeah. We have a couple more questions right before we go.
Yep.
Greg says, if you could make figures for any show from the last 10 years or so, what property would you love to do?
Do I have to pick the last 10 years? Can I go further back?
I would say yes.
I would love to redo the Dick Tracy figures. I felt like the Dick Tracy line, now that I'm thinking about it, there was a question at the very beginning about what was one that I got as a kid, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Dick Tracy, I was able to acknowledge as a kid. I was like, wait a second, where's his coat, man? Where's his yellow jacket? Like, this is Dick Tracy. Like, where's Dick Tracy jacket? So I remember being like mad about that. So to me, like, the figures are iconic because I had them all as a kid except the blank. But they're, the Playmates took the Turtles framework, which didn't translate well into the Dick Tracy line, because Turtles was, mutants and crazy characters like that, whereas Dick Tracy were humans, and it didn't translate well.
Yeah.
So there was a line in the early 2000s that did, Alex gave them to me. I forget what line it was, but they did like 6-inch kind of, highly articulated Dick Tracy figures for like comic book line. And they're not great. Like, they don't hold up well. And I think they're rare to get. But I would love to do a Dick Tracy line and, really do them justice. I know Mezco is doing Dick Tracy, but I'm really disappointed in it because I was not a fan of the old cartoon, the old like newspaper cartoons, that sort of thing, where he had that big square jaw. So I would have wanted to see them a more realistic style and not that cartoon style. So that I'd pick that, or like, me and Michael were talking about, because there's that Robin Hood Prince of Thieves like series 2 that never saw the light of day and didn't get past prototype stage. It's like, I would love to do that line again and make that series. I know that's longer than 10 years ago, but that's one that hits home.
To use a phrase that no one likes, to be fair, I think everything from the last 10 years has pretty much been a reboot of something else. So
yeah, but also it's like, I don't know, from the last 10 years, there hasn't been like stuff that was so bad that I was like, wow, that line needs to be redone. Like I said, like the Super 7, like He-Man stuff, that's disappointing. But you think like in the last 10 years, it would really take me a lot to think. Like from the last 10 years, I did that Spider-Man playset. I'd like another shot at that one. But no, I think, I'd have to go further back.
Bjorn asks, what's your favorite cartoon that had the worst toys? I think that's kind of like the like Silverhawks is the one everyone goes to.
See, as a kid, I thought Silverhawks had great toys. Cartoon that had the worst toys. I think it's easier to find one that had good toys with a worse cartoon, like Jason the Wheeled Warriors. That's a tough one. That would probably take some thought. Yeah, next time I'm on the show, I'll have to answer that question.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards. I, I I'd have to revisit the cartoons, but like Captain Planet or like
Mm.
Toxic Crusaders, which weren't even that bad at toys. I think I might have that reversed. Like I don't remember the show
Yeah,
very well,
Toxic
but
Crusaders were great toys, man. Look at this guy.
yeah,
He's awesome. I know what,
yep.
but it's not a cartoon. It's so I'll say I'll cheat and I'll pick a movie. So Dick Tracy, but also another one. Love the movie. The toys were terrible.
Willow.
Willow, you
Hmm.
know, it's like it's a travesty that General Kale did not get a figure. I would love to get the Willow license just so I could do a highly articulated General Kale. He's one of the coolest villains ever. And when I did the Bone Collector, I was watching Willow and I said, "Oh, a military dude in a skull mask would be so cool." And that's kind of like how that kind of came to be.
Yeah. Blue Pen has some fighting words and says Captain Power toys suck.
Oh, how dare you! How dare you! Captain Power were fantastic toys.
Yeah. The
Ugh.
one thing they lacked was that traditional O-ring construction with waist movement.
Yep.
But those
Yep.
jets with the ejection on them, you press that button and the cockpit flies out.
Dude, he
Game
had Vac
changer.
Metal. Any toy line with Vac Metal was awesome.
Yep. So, speaking of the battle damage, whatever they're calling it, the Motu Origin set with He-Man.
Mm-hmm.
When they announced that, they said that the battle damage didn't work in the chest, that they had to negate it to back metalize it. But on the back of the box, it shows you how to use it. So I haven't opened it yet to see if it actually
Huh.
works or not.
Yeah, I haven't opened the
So
one you got me either, so I'll check it out.
I'm very interested to get cracking on that. But last question of the night comes from Gojatron. He asks what your favorite current toy line is other than Action Force.
I've really like got into a lot of like toy lines. Like over here, like I have the NECA movie Turtles because the Turtles movie is like the '89 Batman movie. That movie is so impactful to my childhood and even today. I have like you've gotten me a bunch of the Snyder cut McFarlane figures. Now I'm not a huge fan of the McFarlane stuff now, but that like I love that movie. Toy line now, probably the Motu Origin stuff is really exciting because it brings you back to like seeing Master of the Universe on shelf, and you and I were talking when you were here, like how deep they're going. Like they're going really, really deep and getting stuff out really fast. So I love what they're doing. So I'd probably say that line is my favorite. That's out right now.
I agree. They're also, and this is going to be blaspheme, I'm sure, for a lot of people, but they're actually making improvements on the vintage ones.
Yeah. It just sucks that like they need to release like a 5-pack of He-Man heads because I want to go back and replace the He-Man head from the first few because he had that shitty head and now they went back to the vintage head.
Right.
And I think like they're starting to see that. It's like, okay, if we're going to go Motu Origins, don't change anything. Like don't say, okay, I'm going 90% in. No. If you're going to go Motu Origins, you go 100% in.
Yep.
And I get it. Like it's one thing to update the articulation. It's a whole other thing to just change the head sculpt. Like there's no need for that whatsoever. But then it's like things like the Scareglow, how he doesn't have a cloth cape, how we both like bummed about that,
I agree with that. That's cloth cape, much better. I know they went with that hard kind of clamshell cape for Hordak, where he used to have that kind of thin vinyl.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. But they originally, the shots that they had shown for publicity, he had a cloth cape. So the kind of bait and switch like that kind of sucked. So before we head out, is there anything that you feel like we didn't cover that you would like to discuss?
I mean, like looking back, like looking at your picture and then looking at my cases, I'm like, oh man, there's so much stuff like I didn't touch on, like the Micro Machine Star Wars stuff was so important for that short period of time. The McDonald's stuff, it's I have a Tasmanian devil dressed as a Flash. Like I remember I love the Flash, so it was like getting that figure when that figure came out at McDonald's, like that was awesome. And it's like we always ate at McDonald's because like when you have kids,
Right.
it's like you take kids to the drive-thru, you get McDonald's, you know, chicken
Mhm.
nuggets, you know, a shake, and you get a Happy Meal.
Mhm.
They had great toys. It's like there's so much stuff. Like I could just go through. I'm gonna have to do when I do like I'll have to do a live stream of just those cases, just to go through the
Mhm.
time capsule that is those cases, because there's stuff in there that, man, you know, creepy crawlers. We're talking about creepy
Oh
crawlers. I got the
yeah.
box right down
Mhm.
there. It's like that. I can talk about that for a half hour. So there's
Learning
so
experiences.
much
Mhm.
that, you know, when I'm putting these cases together, trading cards, like
Mhm.
everything, like had so many memories for me.
Oh yeah. Well, the good news is just because you're on this show once doesn't mean you can't come back. So
This is true. This is
yep,
true.
that's people who have been on before have an open invitation if they ever want to come on again and all that kind of stuff. I'm not
Awesome.
one of those like, oh yeah, you did yours. Let someone else have a chance. It's just if you want to come back, of course,
We
more than
should
welcome.
do a live one, a live stream where you come here
Oh
and
man,
we'll go through the case and we'll talk about all the errors and all the stuff.
oh man, that would
We should do that.
we should because
Yeah.
you like we were pretty much doing that the other day. Like just
I
like
know.
the amount of crossover we had is just incredible.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but alrighty then. So everyone listening at home, this has been one Bobby Vala of the Valaverse. Once more, for the beautiful people at home that are listening or driving or whatever they may be doing, hopefully not watching and driving because that's dangerous, but let them know where they can find you, what you're all about, what you got coming up.
You can find me everywhere, Valaverse on all social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, valaverse.com. Infinity Equation on Friday nights. Big Bad and Dorkside for still pre-orders for Action Force. And I'm just going to tell a quick story just because you made me think of it, and I'm going to blow up his spot a little bit, and I hope he doesn't mind because I texted to him and he laughed his ass off. I was watching Tony's recent video about the land shark. He did a land shark unboxing. Now I'm listening to it and I'm in my car, and for some reason I don't have the video on my phone, but I'm listening to it and I'm like, hold on, let me pull up exactly. This is what I hear from him. You know, as I'm listening to the show. Shoot, where is it? Sorry, bear with me. So I write, so I'm driving and listening to your land shark video with just the audio. This is what I hear. I don't think I've got that in properly. That's quite stiff. It doesn't seem to want to go in. There we go. That is never coming out, I can tell you that. And I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? I'm like,
Yeah.
who's there with him? So I was like, when you listen to something with audio only, it can get a little dicey. So
Mhm.
I thought that was really, really funny. So thank
Yeah.
you, Tony, for giving me a good laugh
Yeah.
by
That's
talking about the land shark in such a dirty, dirty way.
that's right. That some people pay for that. That's a Cambodian delicacy right there.
I felt like I was
Um,
calling a 900 number.
that's right. For those curious, if you'd like to listen to that, that's when he's assembling the side cannons on the land shark. So because you have to do that, which is what it is. But so this has been Bobby Vala. I'm Sal or Salty, whichever one you want to call me. I'm probably going to do a brand change. Just go by Sal. It's easier. Um, but you can catch me here doing idiot things because I'm an idiot. And it's been a great show. This has been The Way I Played, episode number 5. And I want to thank Bobby again for spending his evening with us and just being a great guest all around. One of the few people in our community that has met me and the like, seen my face and all that kind of stuff, which is a privilege, not a right. So I think we've had a great conversation. Hopefully, you'll come back again someday and continue this on. I'd very much enjoy
Absolutely.
that.
It has been
So,
my pleasure to come on.
absolutely. Thank you so much. All right,
Thank you.
everyone. We'll see you in the next video.
See you, gang.